Welcome to another JSWIFT tutorial. In this session, we will be looking at the HSRA process in JSWIFT. Now, I must note that before attempting this process, you must first be registered as an individual to gain user access. Now, after registration, your next step is that you will have to register your company or business in the system as well. So you can visit those tutorials that looks at individual or user access to JSWIFT, and also you can review the tutorial that looks at company or business registration, or rather your entity registration. This video will focus specifically on applying for a new permit for the Hazardous Substance Regulatory Authority. Now, the first step is that once you have logged on and you are on your dashboard, you must navigate to the user services using the menu options to the left of your dashboard. You select the option Permit and New. Once you select the option New, your next step is to identify the regime type. Now, for the HSRA permit request, the options available to the user are import and re-export. Now, please note that you may see the option for export, but the difference between export and re-export is that for re-export, this option is used because the item did not originate in the country. However, if the item originated in Jamaica, then you would have used the option export. So for imported items, import is the option. For items being exported from the country, re-export is the option that should be used. In this demonstration, we'll be looking at the option using import. Now, the first step, you select the option import. Once you select that option, then the application form will appear. Your next step from there is to select the process region. Now, the process region identifies the location of the government office that will be processing the application. So you select the option Kingston because the head office or the office doing the application processing is in Kingston. Your next step from there is to identify the applicant. Now, please note that if you're only affiliated with one company, by default, the system will automatically display the applicant details. However, for those persons that are tied to multiple companies or businesses, you'll be required to select which company this import is being done for, or your affiliated business or entity in the system. The next step from there is to identify the name, contact number, and email address for the applicant. Now, you would enter the applicant name, which is whoever is doing the application, the contact number, which is the number that HSRA assessor can reach you in the event that there are any questions or queries, and also the email address for this applicant. Now, please note that you must use a current email address. The reason for this is that if there are any queries on the application, the system will direct these queries to the email address that is used on the application. The next step is to enter the exporter or consignee details. Now, the exporter, since this is an import, would be that overseas party that is sending those goods to you. So you would enter accordingly. So once you enter those information that is required, which is the name of the company, and this would be an overseas address, and I just entered a fictitious one. you would have completed the required data for the general information page. So on our first page, which is the general information page, we would have captured the regime type, the process region, we would have identified the applicant, the contact details for the applicant, and the exporter that is sending the goods here to Jamaica. The next step is to complete the item details page. Now, to complete the item details page, you just select the option next and it will take you to the next page. On the item details page of the application form, you are required to identify the process type. For the hazardous substance import permit, there are 5 process types that are available. These are the hazardous substance import permit for industrial equipment, the hazardous substance import permit for radiation generators, the hazardous substance import permit for radioactive materials, both sealed and unsealed, and the hazardous substance import permit for radiotherapy equipment. Now, please note that these are the only process types that belong to the HSRA. So you must ensure that you select an option among these 5. For this demonstration, I'll be using the option for radiation generators. Now, please note that you would select the option that best matches your scenario. The next step after selecting the process type is to identify the commodity code. Now, what we have done is that we have filtered the tariff to only display associated tariff codes. Now, please note that if you already know the tariff code, you must still use the option search and then enter the tariff code that matches your scenario. All right. So once you click on the option search, you would see a list of possible tariff codes and descriptions. Please note that the descriptions are general, so you would look at the description that best matches your scenario. Please note, if you are not aware of the tariff code or the HS code to be used, you can send an email to support@jswift.gov.jm for assistance, or you can also contact the Industrial Liaison Unit at the Jamaica Customs Agency for support. Now, in our scenario, we'll be doing some X-ray tubes for radiation generators. Now, if you select the option choose for the items, once you click on choose, the system will autofill the description box with the details from the tariff or the HS code. What you're required to do now is to enter the commercial description. Now, the commercial description is the description as it appears in the tariff, on the invoice. So that is the commercial description. So if this is the description, you would enter the description as it appears. And so on and so forth. Now, the next step after entering the common name or the commercial description is to enter the country of origin. Now, the country of origin identifies the country where the goods were manufactured. So you enter the country of origin, the quantity, which is, in this case, it is asking NMB, which is numbers. So you enter the amount of this item that you're taking in. Your next step is the delivery terms. Now, the delivery terms identifies the relationship or the agreement between the seller and the buyer as to how the goods will get here. Now, that information can be found on your invoice. So the invoice would have the commercial description, and the invoice would also have the delivery terms. Now, in our scenario, we will assume that the cost being reflected on your invoice or the amount being reflected on your invoice constitutes the cost, the insurance charges, and the freight. So in our scenario, we will have it as such. Now, if that is the scenario that we are using, then we will select that option from the delivery terms. Now, the next step is to enter the item value. Now, that information is also found on your invoice. So we'll enter the item value from the invoice as well as the currency that is outlined on the invoice. The next step is to enter the supplier. Now, please note that the supplier and the exporter may or may not be the same. Now, if it is the same, then you enter the same details. If the supplier is different, then you enter whatever the information should be. This information you will also find on your commercial invoice. So your invoice will tell the cost, the delivery terms, the supplier, and also give you the commercial description. Now, let's enter the supplier details. The address, great. Now, the next step is to enter the number of packages. Now, the number of packages identifies how it will be packaged to be sent to Jamaica. Now, you enter the number of package based on the shipped packages. It may or may not be the same as the number of items. So an item can maybe packaged on multiple pallets, right? However, it's still one item. So you enter the packages based on how it will be shipped. And that information you can get from your shipping confirmation or your bill of lading. Or you can ask the supplier. You enter the package type, and it can be anything, right? So there are multiple options that you can choose from. And the manufacturer, which would be that company that would have produced these items. It may and or may not be the same as well. So you enter based on your scenario. Now that we have entered the general information on the page, which would be our commodity code, our description for the commodity being imported, country of origin, number of pieces that we expect, also the number of items that we are expecting, which is a quantity, we would have entered our value and also the supplier details. We continue on the page, and the next step is to enter the equipment details. Now, please note that depending on the selection that was done for the process type, then the system would require specific details about the items being imported. Now, for this particular selection, we did the radiation generator. So the system is now asking us for the equipment details for the selected items. Our first step in this section is to identify the application mode. What type of application is it? Are we doing a new application, meaning the item is being imported the first time it is appearing on a permit request? Is it a renewal? You had applied for a permit for this item and you had not yet used the permit, or an appeal to a decision that was made. In this scenario, we'll be using the option new for new application. The manufacture year, We'll select the manufacturer year for this item. We will also select the radiation type, and you will complete this form based on the information provided to you by the supplier or the manufacturer. Serial number for the equipment, the model number, the radiation certificate number. If you notice, there are some items on the list that have a red asterisk. The red asterisk means that it is a mandatory requirement. But it does not mean that if the information does not apply to you, you should not enter. So if it applies, then you can still go ahead and enter. However, it may or may not be mandatory. Maximum voltage. You enter the maximum voltage for the item. Maximum current is being requested. You enter accordingly. Installation type, is it fixed or mobile or portable? Intended use, what will the item be used for? Now, as we continue, our next step is to identify the supplier RAN details. Now, the supplier RAN details, you will enter that information if you have it. You would enter. You'd enter the expiration date for the supplier RAN. And this is information that your supplier would provide you with. And also the regulatory body for their organization or where they are from. Our next step is to identify who the final recipient is. Now, if you notice, the system says final recipient details, and there's a checkbox. The checkbox says that the final recipient is the same as the importer. Now, please note, if the final recipient is the same as the importer, once you check this box, it will pull the information based on what you have entered as your importer details. Now, you continue with the relevant information. Do not leave any of these boxes blank. The facility. Now, please note that the facility details will appear if the system has a record of a facility registered to this recipient. Now, please note, if while preparing the application, you're not seeing your facility registration, and you indeed have one, you must contact the HSRA for assistance or send an email to support@jswift.gov.jm. What we'll do is we'll investigate and we'll follow up with HSRA for an update. But please feel free to contact the HSRA to query if you have any concerns regarding your facility number and details. For persons who are brokers or agents, they must ensure that they enter their details as agents so that the importer or recipient details will be reflected here on the page. So this is very important. If you notice that it's a mandatory option on the page. Transportation details. How will the goods leave from that overseas territory to Jamaica? What is the date of arrival? When will it get here? And you enter that date. The port of unloading. Where in Jamaica will these goods be offloaded? Your next step is to identify who the qualified experts are, the person or company that will be providing maintenance for this equipment in Jamaica. Now, you must identify who it is. So if it is your radiation safety officer or specialist, you would just enter that individual details, the HSRA RAN details. Then you can identify the category that that individual falls in, and again, the expiration for their RAN. And you click add. Now, each time you click add, the system will add the information for that entered data. Now, there are scenarios whereby you have contracts with your overseas party or your supplier for maintenance. In those cases, you may also enter the details for that entity as well. Now that we have completed all the details required for this particular item, and please note if there are multiple items, you will still enter them, but one at a time. So we have entered our first data, we have entered the generators, we have entered the costs, we have entered the equipment details, we have entered the transportation details, and we have also entered the information for the qualified expert. You must, after entering the details, select Add Commodity. Now, once you select Add Commodity, then what the system will do is add that data on the page. Now, if you have another item to add, you have two options available to you. You can either click Add New and complete the data as we had done just now. There's a second option available, and that is the option of duplicate. Now, please note that the duplicate option should only be used when the second item or the next item, the majority of the details are identical. Now, what does that look like? So if I'm going to use duplicate and I click on duplicate, if you notice, the system replicated that line. And what the system also did was also give me an edit function. Every time you duplicate, you must click edit. Once you click on edit, you will see that information that was not replicated. And in this case, as we're seeing, the value was not replicated. So what we can do, we may have a different model equipment, could be something else like that. The quantity may be different. The value for this one may be different as well. And then from there, you would also want to change your serial number if that's the case. So you click Details, and you go ahead and you can update the serial number. Now, once you have made any changes to the document, you must save changes. So we save changes. If you notice, I did not change the qualified expert, I did not change the supplier, which is to say that for this second item, it is the same supplier, but there are just some differences with the item that is being imported. So we click Save Changes, okay, and then we close the page. And if you notice, the system updated whatever I entered and saved. We move on to the next page. And on the next page, what we'll be required to do is to upload our supporting documents. Now, depending on the item, they may or may not be mandatory attachments. If there are any mandatory attachments, they will be displayed in the blue line and listed as such. Please note that if there are mandatory attachments, you will not be allowed to submit the application without adding these attachments. Now, what I'll do is go through the steps as to how to upload your attachments. In our example, what I will do, I will upload a commercial invoice. Now, please note if you have service contracts, you must also upload those or any other relevant details for this application. In our example, I'll be uploading a commercial invoice. The first step is to reference the document. What type of document am I uploading? And I select the option Commercial Invoice. Then the next step is to click upload, what the system will do, the system will take me to my computer, save files. Once we're on the save files, what the system will do is allow me to choose that particular file with the data that is required. So go ahead and we search for the relevant file that we wish to upload. So we search for our files. And once you find the file, your next step is to upload that document. Select the appropriate file and click to add. Now for each additional document that you are going to add, you would click to add attachment. If you are uploading your service contract, you search for that document description. And you upload accordingly. So if you look, there are a host of options available for you to choose from. Safety standard certificate is there, and all radiation certificate is there. Qualified expert, so you would select from the listing. If at any time the option that you're looking for is not in the list, then we recommend that you contact us at support@jswift.gov.jm for assistance. So I'm going to select the option for radiation certificate. And again, once you're updating and you're adding a document, you click, search for the file, and upload. So that means that in order to complete this application, you must have the documents saved to your local computer that you plan on using in the application. Okay, and once you upload a document, again, you click to add. The third column will identify the description of the document that was uploaded. The first column identifies the name of the file that you had saved on your computer. Once you have uploaded all your documents, then you click next. The system will indicate if there are any errors, verification successful. If there are errors that are identified in your application or missing mandatory information, you will not see the submit button. So you can just look to see what the errors are and then fix them. Now, at this point, you click submit. Once you submit the application, you'll get a reference number. The system will allow you the option to pay now. So if you plan to pay using our e-payment facility, then you click pay now. If not, you can click close. Now, if you close the document, when you reopen, the pay number now option may not be there. However, if you watch the tutorial video on e-payment or online payment, it will give you all the steps on how to make a payment on JSWIFT. If you're ready to pay, click pay now. If you're not ready, you can close and pay afterwards. But please note that the application will not be processed unless the processing fees are paid. So you click pay now. If you wish to pay, trader, which is the applicant name that the application was done in, document type is permit. You click search. When the application was submitted, it asks for the registration details. Once you click search, you will see the application. You click to add, close the application. You will scroll. Notice the application is on the page, the amount to be paid. Your next step, select payment type, which is e-payment, and then you click pay now. Once you click pay now, you'll see the information that your application for payment is being sent to a third-party gateway. Now, once you click yes, the system will give you a confirmation page, allow you to enter your payment details and pay. Once the payment is successful, your application will automatically be updated to paid. Thank you for watching the JSWIFT process on how to submit a permit application for the HSRA using JSWIFT. Thanks for watching.